A girl stands very still in the woods. It's quiet. She presses her ear to the ground. Footsteps. Someone is coming, but she doesn't run. She sings.
No more shall they in bondage toil. Let my people go.
It sounds like a song, but it's actually a secret code that people hiding nearby know exactly what it means. It means, get ready, it's time to move. That girl was Harriet Tubman. Welcome to Soulful Stories, where we journey through lives of remarkable minds who shaped our world. Through their struggles, triumphs, and powerful ideas, we discover timeless lessons that can awaken our own genius and inspire us to see the world and ourselves a little differently. Today's story is about a woman so brave, so clever, and so unstoppable. She helped over 700 people escape from slavery and did it while being hunted, chased, and threatened with death. And she didn't have any superpowers. She didn't even know how to read or write. But she had a superpower far more important than that: her will and her courage, and a secret escape route called the Underground Railroad. This most amazing, unbelievable true story from history will make your heart pound, your eyes widen. Let's begin. Harriet Tubman was born in Maryland around the year 1822. Her real name was Araminta Ross. People called her Minty. Minty was born into slavery. That meant she didn't own her time, her body, or even her future. She was the fifth of 9 children. Her parents, Harriet and Ben Ross, were enslaved on separate farms. Minty's parents were both slaves. Her mother, Harriet Green, worked in the kitchen. Her father, Ben Ross, was a skilled timber cutter. They lived in a small one-room cabin, not much larger than a shed, where children huddled together on cold nights and prayers were whispered in the dark. Minty was strong, both in body and spirit. By age 5, she was doing housework. By 7, she was working in the fields. She chopped wood, she hauled water, she trapped muskrats, all under the hot sun without rest. She didn't have dolls or games. For fun, she told stories, sang songs, and played with her siblings when she could. But mostly, she worked. Minty was one of the 9 children, but one by one, her sisters were taken away, sold off like cattle, sometimes in the middle of the night. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Minty watched her mother cry in silence, and slowly she began to understand. In this world, love can become a terrible risk, the risk of losing everything. At just 5 years old, Minty was sent to work for another family. She didn't play with dolls or draw pictures like other children her age. Instead, she was ordered to rock a white woman's baby, day and night. The woman told her, "Don't let the baby cry." But of course, babies cry. And when the baby cried, Minty was whipped. At 5 years old, her back already carried scars. But that was only the beginning. One day, hungry and weak, Minty saw a sugar bowl on the table. She didn't think. Her stomach ached so badly that she took a tiny pinch, just a little sweetness to stop the pain. She was caught. The punishment was harsh. She was beaten for stealing sweetness in a world that gave her none. But even as her back stung with pain, her heart whispered, "There is more than this, and one day I'll find it. In slavery, even hunger was a crime. As Minty grew older, the work became harder and more dangerous. One day, when she was around 12, she was sent to a store to pick up supplies. Outside the shop, she saw a young enslaved boy try to run away. The overseer yelled and grabbed a heavy iron weight. He hurled it, aiming for the boy, but the weight didn't hit the boy. It struck Minty instead, right in the forehead. She collapsed. Blood poured from her head. She was unconscious for hours, maybe days. No doctor was called, no bed was offered. She was sent back to work. From that moment on, something changed in Minty. Many people thought she was broken, but when she awoke, she began to see things. She started having strange visions. Sometimes she'd be awake, walking or talking, and then suddenly fall into a deep, trance like state, like a fainting spell. She'd dream of lights, of voices, of things that hadn't happened yet. She believed these visions were messages from God, signs meant to guide her. Something sacred had awakened in her. From that moment on, Harriet believed she had a purpose. She started listening to those visions and trusting them. She said, I always told God I'm going to hold steady on to you, and you've got to see me through. Minty began to feel a quiet strength building inside her. She didn't just endure pain, she turned it into power. She worked harder than anyone. She prayed louder. She listened to the wind, the trees, the stars, and deep in her heart, she started to believe that her life was meant for something more. She did not know how, she did not know when, but she knew one day she would be free. This girl, once beaten for crying, whipped for stealing sugar, knocked down by iron, she would rise. And her name would one day become a symbol of courage for the entire world. Minty was no longer a child. Her hands were rough, her shoulders broad from carrying logs and howling water, but inside she remained quiet, watching, learning, listening to the whispers of the wind and the secrets passed through the songs sung in the fields. She learned to read the land, the direction of moss on trees, the shape of animal trails. She watched the stars, the North Star in particular, and memorized its position every night before bed. By the time she was a teenager, Minty was hired to work in the forest with her father. There in the woods, away from the overseer's whip, she found peace. She learned how to chop timber, how to move silently through dense trees, and how to navigate without a map. Her father taught her secrets, how to blend into shadows, how to make traps, how to vanish in a blink. These weren't just survival skills, they were the beginning of something far greater, a path to freedom. When Minty returned to the plantation, she saw more friends sold away, more families broken. One day she overheard her name in a whispered conversation. A nearby plantation was considering buying her. Minty froze. If she was sold farther south, deeper into the cotton fields of Georgia, she would never escape. The deeper you were sold, the tighter the chains became. She knew it was now or never. At night, Harriet began preparing quietly, carefully. She worked long hours so no one would suspect her. She asked questions, coded questions, like, have you ever seen the drinking gourd? That was a clue. The drinking gourd was a secret name for the Big Dipper constellation, the one that pointed north. She visited local churches where preachers sang spirituals like
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's a gonna trouble the water. See that band all dressed in white. God's a gonna trouble the water.
To outsiders, it sounded like worship, but to those who knew, it meant a message. Then came the moment. One moonless night, she slipped away. She left behind her bed, her belongings, her name on the plantation ledger. She carried nothing but her faith. And so, barefoot and breathless, she began her journey north. She moved through swamps, rivers, forests, walking by night, hiding by day. She followed the stars, trusted the wind, ate roots and berries, hid beneath floorboards, slept in barns, prayed constantly. And finally, after nearly 100 miles of danger, Minty crossed the border into Pennsylvania. She was free. For the first time in her life, she could breathe deeply without fear. She could look at the sky and know she owned her own body, her own name. But Minty didn't celebrate for long. She stood in free soil and thought of her mother, her father, her brothers, and her sisters. Still in chains, freedom meant nothing if they weren't free too. So Minty made a decision that would change history. She would go back again and again and lead them out herself. Freedom, like a deep breath after years of holding it in. Minty stood on free soil in Pennsylvania, but her soul still paced in the fields of Maryland, calling out the names of her family. She had promised, if I make it out, I'll come back, and now she would. She found work as a cook and a maid in Philadelphia, saved every penny, lived on scrapes, wore the same dress for months, all for one reason: to buy tools and clothes for her return journey. In 1850, when a new law passed, the Fugitive Slave Act, everything changed. It said, even if you escaped to the north, you could still be captured and sent back. Now, no place in the United States was safe, but instead of stopping Minty, it lit a fire in her. I had reasoned this out in my mind, she once said. There was one of two things I had a right to: liberty or death. And so she returned. Her first rescue mission was not easy. She disguised herself as a field hand, wore a headscarf low over her face, and walked straight into the enemy territory. There were no phones, no maps, no lights, no guarantees. What she had was a memory that was sharper than steel, a mind that could map trees, rivers, and stars, and a soul that never forgot the way back, no matter how dark the night. At night, she'd find her brothers hiding in the woods. By day, they crept through the swamps and fields. There were slave catchers with dogs, bounty posters with her name. But Minty had learned how to vanish. She used back routes and safe houses, sometimes stopping at homes with a lantern hanging in a specific window, a secret signal that the house was safe. She sang coded songs to signal danger or safety. To outsiders, it was just a hymn. To hear her group, it meant they are being watched. Wait until it's safe. They walked 100 miles. mostly at night, barely sleeping. They crossed rivers, shivered in barns, and stayed hidden in church basements. And when they finally crossed into Pennsylvania, her brothers dropped to their knees. They were free. And Harriet had kept her promise. But she wasn't done. In the years that followed, Harriet Tubman returned 13 times, each trip more dangerous than the last. Each time, she risked her life to bring back her family, and then strangers too. Children, mothers, entire families. Some were too scared to go, others doubted her. Harriet was firm. She once said, "You'll be free or you'll die. There's no turning back." And no one ever did. Not a single person she led ever got caught.
Wow, she sounds so brave. I could never do that. She's like a real hero.
It makes me wonder, could I be this brave? Could I walk through darkness not for myself but for someone else, risking my own life? She carried a gun, not to shoot anyone but to keep people from giving up. If they turned back, they'd be captured, and so would she. So she stood her ground. She prayed. She led. She survived. I never ran my train off the track and I never lost a passenger. They called her Moses, the woman who led her people out of slavery. Her efforts earned her the nickname Moses, symbolizing her role in leading her people to freedom. But Harriet never claimed glory. She once said, "Imagine a world where a simple song could mean the difference between life and death. I live in that world." She knew she had to outsmart those who hunted her: slave catchers and bloodhounds, bounty hunters with guns, even neighbors who would betray you for a silver coin. But Minty didn't just survive, she outwitted them all. She became the master of hidden messages, simple things that looked ordinary but were not. Her world was full of code. Songs were used like whispered signals. She might sing, "Wade in the water, children." That meant stay off the roads, walk in the rivers. Dogs can't track your scent through water. Or she'd hum, "Steal away in the fields," which told listeners, "It's time, we are leaving tonight." Clothing mattered too. Harriet learned to change outfits as she traveled. She dressed as an old woman, a man, a washerwoman. She'd carry chickens and talk to herself, playing the part so well that no one suspected a thing. Sometimes she'd even walk boldly through towns where posters with her face hung on trees. But no one ever guessed, because Harriet didn't look like a hero. She looked like a ghost, always vanishing before danger struck. Now, listen to this. In some communities, braided hairstyles became part of the code. Imagine this: a quiet night, a small cabin where a mother is braiding her daughter's hair carefully, her hands moving with purpose, a loop here, a knot there, whispering, "When you reach the river, turn left. The second barn with broken fence, knock 3 times." To anyone watching, it's just an ordinary braid. But to the girl, it's a way to survive. Yes, hair. Straight rows could represent roads. Curved lines might show rivers. Knots or beads woven into specific places could mark safe houses or warn of traps. To outsiders, they were just pretty patterns, but to those in the know, they were directions to freedom. Some evidence suggests that Harriet would use braided messages into other people's hair before she began a journey. However, there's no proof of the use of braid maps by Harriet. Enslaved Africans in the Afro Caribbean and African American history did use these messages. And I thought I'd share it with all of you because it was so fascinating for me how ingenious these men and women were in order to find their way to freedom, not having the resources and using whatever means they have to enable their children to find their way to freedom. As for Harriet, her mind was a map. She memorized dozens of routes. She knew which houses were safe and which were not. She trusted only those who had proven themselves, brave people who risked everything to help. They called it the Underground Railroad, but there were no trains, no tracks. It was just brave people, secret doors, and Harriet, the leader, the conductor. By the time she was done, she had led over 70 people to freedom personally and helped over 700 more later through her work as a spy in the Civil War. She did it all without being caught, without money, without fear, and always in silence. No journals, no maps, no selfies, just faith and fire. Like I mentioned, 700 people or more through her work as a spy during the Civil War. She became a real life action hero. She didn't carry a sword, she carried courage. She became the first woman in US history to lead a military expedition. Harriet was recruited by James Montgomery and worked with the Union's Secret Service. Her mission: to gather intelligence from enslaved people in the Confederate territory, map out a terrain and find weak points in the enemy defenses, identify supply lines, troop movements, and hidden explosives, and help people for raids that would free enslaved people. In this mission, she helped over 700 people rescue. And when the battle was over, Harriet rolled up her sleeves and became a nurse, healing hurt soldiers and freed people using plants and herbs she learned from her mother. She didn't wear a doctor's coat or have fancy degree, but everyone who saw her called her something even better: the General of Compassion. After the Civil War, Harriet Tubman faced a long, painful struggle to receive any compensation for her vital military service. As a scout, spy, and nurse for the Union Army, Harriet Tubman, with all her contribution and enormous efforts, did not receive any compensation for her service. As a scout, spy, and nurse, she was denied a formal military pension for decades. But time has a way of revealing the truth. In 2013, President Barack Obama stood before a nation and said, "Harriet Tubman is one of the greatest patriots this country has ever known." He pushed for a bold change: to place her face on the $20 bill, replacing President Andrew Jackson. A symbol, a reckoning, a new kind of legacy. The new design is currently expected to be released in 2026, but the process of redesigning the bill has been delayed. A bill called the Women of the 20 Act requires that all $20 notes printed after December 31st, 2026 feature a portrait of Harriet Tubman. This initiative was introduced in the House on June 12, 2023. This was mind-blowing for me. For over 100 years, the face of the $20 American bill has been Andrew Jackson, a founding father, a general, a president. He talked about liberty and independence, but at the same time, he enslaved hundreds of people. He was powerful, fierce, and often cruel. How could a man speak of freedom and deny it to so many? But soon, the face on the $20 bill will not be a man of war, a man of slavery, but a woman of peace. Not someone who owned lives, but someone who risked her own to free them. A woman who followed the North Star through forests and rivers, guiding shackled souls to freedom. Yes, Harriet Tubman. And she did not need speeches or titles. She made history one brave step at a time. Because Harriet Tubman isn't just someone from the past, she's a forever hero, a symbol of bravery, of doing the right thing even when it's hard. She was born a slave, she died free, and because of her, hundreds of others did too. The girl who was whipped for stealing sugar, the teenager who was struck in the skull and left for dead, the woman who woke from those wounds with dreams, visions she believed were messages from God. She ran toward danger, not away from it. She freed herself and then turned back again and again to rescue others. She never had riches, she never asked for fame. All she wanted was this: I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a single passenger. She was not just the conductor of the Underground Railroad, she was a conductor of hope, a vessel of faith, a symbol of strength. From chains to change, from shadows to light. Thank you, Harriet. We see you now. We remember you as a legend for our podcast, Soulful Stories. I saw some interviews with Gen Z African Americans who reflect on Harriet Tubman's legacy. They express a direct connection to her actions and bravery. They wouldn't be here if she didn't rescue their ancestors. Don't know about you, but I feel what a story. Thank you for listening to Soulful Stories. If Harriet Tubman's journey lit a fire in your heart, share this story with someone you love. And always remember, even in the darkest night, one brave soul can light the way. We'd be so thrilled to hear from you. Please take a moment to write us a review, share this story with your friends and family, and follow and subscribe to Soulful Stories wherever you listen. Your voice helps us keep these important stories alive, stories of courage, hope, and truth. Together, we can inspire more hearts to see the power in every story. Thank you for being part of our journey. Until next time, keep your soul full and your stories soulful. Before we end today's episode, we want to express our deepest gratitude to a very special artist, Cynthia Liggins Thomas, for generously allowing us to use two of her beautiful songs in this podcast. We are truly honored to feature it here on Soulful Stories. Thank you, Cynthia, for your support and for helping us bring history to life for young hearts and minds. You can find more of Cynthia's music in the description below.
No more shall they in bondage toil. Let my people go. Let them come out with Egypt's spoil. Let my people go.